Welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show, the podcast where personal injury legal expertise meets real-world advice to empower and protect you. Join us as we delve into the critical aspects of personal injury cases, break down legal jargon into actionable insights, and share essential safety tips to help you navigate life's unexpected moments. And now, here are your hosts, Spencer Bettis and Ben Musgrove.
Well, welcome back to the Bettis Musgrove Show. As always, I'm Ben Musgrove. These are my law partners, Spencer Bettis and Christopher Light. This is now Season 2, Episode 13. We're continuing with our community discussion, just talking about all the amazing people that live around us and the great things that they do. And today we're pleased and honored to be joined by our Superintendent for Forsyth County Schools, Mr. Mitch Young. Thank you for coming and joining us today.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, I appreciate you knowing Chris and y'all making this connection and getting in here. So
This is great.
good stuff. Why don't you kick us off? Just tell us who you are, where you come from, how you got here.
Yeah, no, so this is, and I can't believe I'm saying this is year 19 in Forsyth County for me.
Wow.
So I know I'm not here long enough to be considered a native, but
What is the
you know,
what's the cutoff there?
I don't know. That's probably a question I need to ask a couple of natives here,
Yeah.
what that is. But I will say this. I learned very quickly from someone you and I both share a relationship with, you a little bit closer, but your mom told me from the very beginning, if I ever wanted to make it in the school system, that I better understand it's Forsyth County and not Forsyth.
That is right. It's very important. It'll be corrected quickly.
So I at least can speak a little native tongue that way. But no, this is year 19. I started here. I'd been teaching and coaching in Gwinnett County for 7 years.
Okay.
And my wife and I had little ones at the time, and this was the school system that we wanted to raise our kids in. And so when they hit kindergarten, first grade age, we'd been looking, and a new school was opening up called West Forsyth High School. And Richard Gill, the principal there, offered me an opportunity to come there and be a history teacher and start to dabble in the administrative, side of the building. And so I went there and I was a teacher for half the day and half the day an assistant administrator. And then it just kind of, it was 2007, took off from there.
Awesome.
19 years ago, so I was already out of high school, unfortunately. But yeah, Richard Gill, he was at North at first when I first started, I believe, and then he went to South.
Yeah. He's a legend.
He is.
He's a legend. There's not many people that lead in the system like he's kind of like Kevin Bacon. You're within 7 degrees of Richard Gill.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
School
couldn't
system.
agree.
And I think 20 years. Once you've been here 20 years, you become a local.
All right.
So I'm coming up on 14.
Okay.
Got a few more to go.
All right. I got to get one more contract extension. Make it one more year. I'll get to my 20th.
So where'd you come from originally?
So I grew up in Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and Christopher said I couldn't talk Phillies.
No.
Okay.
No,
So I'll leave that out. I won't talk about the Philadelphia Phillies, who are top of the East right now. And
Jeff.
We can edit that part.
no, I grew up in north central, kind of north central Pennsylvania, a little town called East Smithfield, and small. I think when people think of Pennsylvania, they've never been up north. You think of Philly. You think everything looks like Newark, New Jersey. The reality is Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh is a city, Philadelphia is a city, and everything else is a dairy farm.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in one of those dairy farm communities, and my grandpa was the postmaster and owned the general store, and my dad was the basketball coach in town.
Okay.
And the size of our town, about 2,000 people. There's more kids at West Forsyth High School than there is in East Smithfield. So
That's insane.
So I grew up, basketball coach. So I played Little League baseball. I played soccer. I played basketball was the passion, though.
Do you have a big family? Siblings?
So I've got a grand total of 4 siblings, and all sisters. And they just absolutely hate the fact that I'm the golden boy.
That's great.
And we just had one of my youngest sister just got married, and I officiated, which
Very cool.
which was a really cool experience.
I got to do that for my little sister too.
Yeah.
So
Took the golden boy status to a whole new level.
Where do you fall in the 5?
So I have an older half sister, and
Okay.
then me, and then 3 younger sisters.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So but everybody in my extended family, my uncles, aunts, grandparents, everybody lived within about 20 minutes of each other, and it was a great way to grow up. And again, basketball was my passion as a kid, and I think everybody growing up in the 80s. I mean, again, I'm not talking politics, but in the era of the Cold War and Ronald Reagan,
Right.
like we all wanted to serve our country, and so that sort of love for America was developed in East Smithfield. And my dad was a basketball coach, so we moved across state. He went to a larger school and ended up just outside of Erie, Pennsylvania.
Right.
And But the one thing that remained constant was the love of hoops.
Yeah.
So I knew at some point I'd probably teach and coach, go into the family business.
And you eventually made your way down to Florida State?
I did, yeah. I went to a small school in Pennsylvania for a couple of years to play basketball, and
What school?
Dickinson College.
Yeah.
Really known for its law school. They have a phenomenal law school there.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
And you played there a while.
Well, I was there to play. I joined a fraternity, made a few poor choices.
All right.
And,
So it's good though that you made the team though. You were on the team.
No.
Oh, I was gonna. Oh, Ben's been giving-
I went ahead and stepped away right before the season started, which that didn't go over well with my family.
Yeah,
okay.
My pops was not pleased. The coach was not pleased, and after 2 years, I was pretty lost. Believe it or not, I know it sounds like a made up story, but I'm on the recliner, sitting in the recliner in our fraternity house when Jimmy V, who I loved as a kid, did the famous SB speed.
Right.
And at that point, I realized I got to get my stuff together.
Right.
Like what am I like? And that kind of re-sparked. I gotta coach. I gotta get back involved in basketball. So I transferred to Florida State,
The biggest party school in the nation.
So, well, it's all about intention. So I didn't go there for the party. I didn't go there for the party. But I went there and got a job as a manager with the basketball team. So there's a little pride to be swallowed there.
Yeah.
I had played in high school against this kid named Bobby Sura, who was starring at Florida State at the time. Went on to a great career in the NBA.
Very cool.
And I went from competing against him to filling his water bottle. So there's a little humility that goes into that. But developed a really close relationship with Pat Kennedy, who was the head basketball coach at Florida State, and stayed there as a student assistant, then a graduate assistant.
Wow.
Coached high school for a year at Florida State University High School, or Florida High is called. And then when Pat Kennedy switched and took the job at DePaul University in Chicago, he invited me to join his staff up there. And so I was the director of basketball operations for 2 years at DePaul.
Wow.
And from there to St. Francis University for a year as an assistant coach. And then we got pregnant and decided, okay, this is a breaking point. Do I want to continue to chase the craziness of college athletics, or teach and coach and have some stability? And so we ended up in
that's what I was curious about. Just kind of looking at your bio, it sounded like you were on a coaching path.
I was.
And then did you know though education was a fallback, or is that something that it sounds like after you got pregnant,
No, that's a great question, because actually when I was at DePaul, we had a player on our team named Lance Williams, from in the city of Chicago. I mean, a phenomenal talent. And academically needed a little extra coaching, and so we had tutors and everything set up, but there were some classes that I sat down and worked side by side with him, and really, my degree was in education, but I'd never, other than that 1 year, hadn't really exercised it, and I so enjoyed the teaching part of that, and so I think at that point I knew probably at some point I had to make a decision. My dad's dream was to coach college basketball,
Sure,
and I was kind of chasing. I'm not trying to make this a psychoanalysis. I think if I were in therapy, they'd probably tell you I was chasing his dream.
Right.
When I shifted gears and went back and decided to coach at the high school level and ended up at Shiloh High School in Gwinnett County, I did coach because you had to do that to get a social studies teaching job.
Right.
But my passion was really in the classroom, and I loved teaching.
neat.
I still love teaching.
Well, coaching in college, I know a couple coaches that grew up with, and you can't keep up with what city they're in from year to year. I mean, you've got to marry somebody that's ready to do that too.
No doubt. And my wife, God bless her, she grew up in Valdosta.
Okay.
She went to Lowndes High. The baseball stadium there is named after her daddy.
All right.
An old George baseball stadium, and so she knew what she was in for, marrying a coach.
Yep.
And was a trooper. But when we had Alexis, our daughter, we kind of wanted to have a life of some stability.
Sure. I totally get it.
It's great now. I see some of my contemporaries that started down that path when I did, that are now head coaches out there. Probably the most famous of which is Mick Cronin, who's at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been fun to watch them, and I find myself rooting for guys that I had relationships with and got to know.
Sure.
When it comes to college basketball, but when it comes to college football, man, I'm all about the Noles.
Okay.
All right. Penn State has a little place in my heart because that's where I grew up, and I've got 2 degrees from the University of Georgia, so I'm a Dogs fan too.
I like it.
So, but the Noles are who they're the ones I'll stay up late for.
Good week to be a Knowles fan.
So,
yeah. Well, so tell us, getting into the education realm, you were there for how many years before you moved up into superintendent role?
Yeah, so I spent 7 years as a classroom teacher at Shiloh. We moved up here in 2007. Spent 3 more years as I shared as sort of halftime in the classroom, halftime administrator. Got my first assistant principal gig at Lambert High School under Gary Davison, and spent 3 years there. 1 more year at West as an AP, and then that's when the Board of Education tapped me. Buster Evans was superintendent at the time, and tapped me to be principal at Forsyth Central High School. And I would just tell you, the best 7 years of my life professionally. I absolutely loved leading that school and working with those teachers, and those families that we had were just so special, that 7 years. As luck would have it, Jeff Bearden, the superintendent at the time, kind of challenged me to think beyond the principalship, which I really had no designs on. And, our dear friend Joey Perkle was contemplating retirement, and they thought that I might have a shot at coming. You don't replace Joey because he's one of a kind, and he's still a giant in our school system, but to at least come in and, settle into his office. I still call it his office, by the way.
Yeah.
And so I got to do that for 3 years, and then, a year and a half ago, they tapped me to be superintendent.
That's what I got to know Mitch probably a little before he became principal, but then when he became principal at Central, so I went to North, obviously, but then I live in the city, and my kids are probably going to go to Central. So I was like, all right, Mitch is going to be our principal when my 5-year-old's in high school. I don't know why. But then as soon as I was like, oh, great, we lost Mitch. But then, we got Josh Lowe
took over.
And now
I pulled him up with me.
there.
He was so awesome at Central, and someone that I trust so much. He was my, we had, really, I said my go-to. We had a team of just great leaders, all sort of collected at Central at that one time, and they're all now principals or out there leading their own thing. And Josh obviously did a great job after I left of taking Central to new levels.
Yeah.
And so then when I moved into the superintendent job and had that vacancy, the chief of staff position or deputy position, I didn't even interview. I just said,
"That's my
if
guy.
you're willing to come, I want you to come because I can trust you."
Right.
So I don't think it's any secret. I mean, around the state and even nationally, Forsyth County Schools are just the cream of the crop. How did they get to be that way?
Well, that's such a great question. It comes down to the parents and the community and the school system all having a common sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And so I think if you go back, I can't remember the exact year when superintendents, they stopped making that an elected political position.
Yeah.
And it became an appointed position. Eileen McGill was the first, if you've heard that name, she was the first appointed superintendent. And shortly thereafter, for the first time, the community did a strategic planning process so that everybody was brought together. Parents were involved, businesses were involved, chamber was involved, came together, and they mapped out a 5-year strategic plan. And that was around probably 2000, right at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
It seems odd to say that. Back at the turn of the century. And with her leadership and having a strategic plan that all these different groups in the community were married to, it gave a common purpose.
Yeah.
And literally from that point to where we are now, it became the focus of the parents in this community to make sure that our public school system was a top tier system. And so I come into this at this point as someone who's just trying to steward and make sure that we maintain that. The challenge I put out there, and our district leaders hear it all the time. I shared it at the chamber at our State of the Schools this year. Our biggest enemy really is complacency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have got to be on guard. When you've had a long history of success and a long history of stability, it is really easy to slide into complacency. Well, ask our Alabama fans. It doesn't just happen because of the name on the jersey, right? It happens because you got to keep that. And that's, a guy like Nick Saban was the best at fighting off, Coach K at Duke in his prime. You never rest on your laurels. It's always about getting better.
When you followed some good ones too. So you had some good models and some things to build on.
Christopher, I don't know, why I've been as blessed as I have. But when you go back through going back to, well, it starts with my grandfather, my mom's father, of course, a great mom, and then my dad, coach. It starts with family, but then at every turn, I had somebody that took me under their wing or mentored me. From Pat Kennedy, to Richard Gill, to Jeff Bearden.
Right.
I've always been blessed to have somebody that's, that's been there. Joey Perkle is another one that, that for whatever reason they've kind of taken me in and mentored me at different stages of my life. So
maybe you could explain a little bit about what a superintendent's role is. Like, what is it? Maybe people don't necessarily know. You're not elected. We've already talked.
Yeah, no, you're not elected, and really the on paper, what the job is really is to take the policies that the Board of Ed passes and to make sure they're executed. So in many ways, it's sort of like your Board of Ed is sort of like the legislative branch, and the superintendent and all the staff are kind of like the executive branch.
Yeah,
and that's the easiest way
makes sense
to articulate it. So you're
kind of how the city of Cumming set up with the mayor and city council.
It's almost a CEO position.
CEO
is really what it is. And so in that regard, managing the budget and making sure we come in with a clean, balanced budget every year, or figuring out what we've got to cut and how we're going to manage the staff. We're the largest employer in the county with nearly 8,000 employees.
Wow.
Over 5,000 are full time, and 55,000 students. I think 53 buildings, 43 which are school buildings. It would be considered a large company.
Yeah.
And in fact, Forbes magazine classifies us as a large company, and we ended up, in one of the top large employers in the nation.
Wow.
And one of the top 5 or top 5 in the state, top 10 in the state. So, and that doesn't just happen. Again, going back to all those people we talked about, from Paula Galt to Buster Evans to Jeff Bearden, we've had great superintendents and great partnerships with the board. None more than Darla Light, this guy's mom, and
she served her time.
She did it, and she did it incredibly well. And so, so the superintendent's job then is to make sure that we're meeting our strategic goals. And we talked about that strategic plan. We're year 4 of our most recent 5-year strategic plan, and it's my job to make sure that the principals and the district leaders align all of their work to fulfilling this district strategic plan that we have. Sometimes that means, reminding, in a gentle, appropriate way, reminding your board members to stay focused, on the core mission, the core purpose, which has never been a problem because we've had great board leadership. Certainly with Darla, Mike Valdez is doing a great job of leading the board as the chairman at this point. And, and then there's the money piece. And we get chewed up a lot because you're dealing with people's children, and you're dealing with their money. So when you deal with those two things, you're going to get passionate people.
Sure.
And so our folks, especially when you've been a principal and assistant principal, by the time you get to the district office, you've sort of developed that thick skin to know that they're angry sometimes, or their passions run over. It's not you.
Right.
It's at whatever the situation is, and and usually it's a call for help of some sort. So we know not to take the anger and fight it with anger, but to try to figure out what's at the root of it. And normally it's some kind of fear, and help them through that.
So
what
what
are some of the strategic goals right now that you guys have?
Yeah, so we've got there's 5 real buckets of strategic goals. One, first and foremost, obviously, is student and staff safety. So the social and emotional well-being of our students and staff, that has to be the foundation of everything. If people come to school and they are not safe, or they don't feel safe, and that safety may be physical or psychological,
right,
staff and students, you can't learn without that foundation of safety. You can't ever get away from the fact that our core work is the learner experience. Like, at the end of the day, what are we in the business of? Some would say we're in the real estate business of keeping property values up, but you got to peel that onion away.
Done a great job there.
The real business and what drives our community's property values is the academic success of our students.
Sure.
So that learner experience is right there. And I'm saying these not in pride; they're all priority 1.
Yeah.
safety is truly priority one, and everything else is a 1A.
Right.
But the learner experience, operational excellence, and so this is where being stewards of our taxpayers' dollars has to be. We want to give the highest quality education in the safest possible environments for the least amount of money that we can spend, which I don't want to cheapen it, but you're talking about like this year's budget, $750 million.
Right.
Yeah.
That blows people away. Now, I'm proud of the fact that our county, when you look at all the metro area school districts, we're the lowest per pupil cost, and we're getting the best results. And that's that mission focus that we've got, on the learner experience and the safety. You've also got, the retention and development of our staff, the recruitment and development of our staff. The teacher pool continues to shrink across America.
Yeah.
And so you've got to stay competitive.
Yeah.
We're conservative fiscally, so we're never going to be the highest paying county, in the land. But at the same time, we've got to stay competitive, or we're going to lose teachers to Fulton and Gwinnett and Cherokee and so forth. So that retention is a huge challenge for us. But what's interesting, guys, is when teachers leave a school system, and there's reams of research on this, when they leave a school system and they're surveyed as to why, money is not the number one reason why.
Yeah.
The administration that they work for always comes out as the number one reason why they stay or leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so development, when we say recruitment and development, the development of leadership capacity among our teachers, assistant principals, to make sure that they understand that relationships, a lot of systems talk about it, but in this community, that's everything.
Yeah.
The parents' relationships that we have, with our business community, amongst parents, booster clubs, like
Right.
all those relationships have to be purpose focused. And we're not one of those systems that it would be much easier to be black and white with all of our procedures and everything we do. But everything we do really is, as much as it possibly can be, is what is best for that individual student.
Yeah.
Now, there are times when what's best for that individual student versus what's best for the whole school, the group of kids that are there, you got to err on the side of safety for the masses.
Right.
But for the most part, we try to individualize everything as best as we can, and it's led to great results,
Yeah.
which kind of kicks us into the world of safety.
Yeah, well, I was going to
Which
ask you
may
about
be on
that.
your
So,
mind.
yeah, it is. So I know that school safety is probably just an ever-changing field. What kind of things are going on in Forsyth County?
It is. Well, I think the biggest challenge that we see across our country right now with school safety is how in the world do you get upstream and be proactive?
Right.
Most everything you read about, all the things that vendors want us to purchase, all the laws that are passed about you've got to have panic buttons and you got to have this and you got to have that. Those are all reactions to an event,
Right.
unfortunate event happening, which are far more prevalent than they've ever been. So of course we're going to be on top of that, and I can talk about some of those specifics. But you also we really have got to figure out how to get at, like, why are they coming to school
Right.
with this anger or this, these feelings of wanting to do harm to others or themselves, and a lot of it has to do with isolation. Sometimes it has to do with the stress of being overscheduled for a thousand different things that, to live out mom and dad's dreams sometimes. So there's various causes upstream that we as a community, if we really want to be on the cutting edge, then we got to be a community that figures out how do you get ahead of the problem.
Mhm.
And honestly, it starts before childbirth. It starts with nutrition, and it starts with, raising your child in a healthy atmosphere, but with a healthy diet and with exercise, like all the things you hear. It's not rocket science, but it's hard for someone to solve outside of the core family. So the core family is still at the root of that.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge that we're all of us in public education are dealing with. The things when you talk about school safety that we do, I mean, in our county, we've got more counselors and social workers and more of that than the state allots us for, because our community is so invested in our public education. We're able to have more than the minimum.
Yeah.
We've got such a phenomenal relationship with law enforcement. with Ron Freeman in the sheriff's office,
Yep.
with PJ in the city. We've got great relationships there. So really, with Ron, we've got a deal where we have SROs or school resource officers in every school.
Yeah.
That's like, we take that for granted here. There are school systems out there that still would love to have one SRO in their system. And so we've got this relationship where we've got in excess, I think we're nearing like about 80 SROs.
Wow.
And you said 43 schools?
Yeah, and so we split the cost of that. Now, not all of them are SROs. Some we've got two of the newest positions that Ron created that we split the cost with is juvenile detectives or threat investigators.
Okay.
So whenever you have one of these tragedies happen, you'll have a barrage of other threats to come out, and we got to check all those.
Yep.
And our assistant principals do a great job of being investigators. But it's nice now that we've got a couple of law enforcement trained.
Sure.
This is what they do for a living, and they are good at it.
Yeah.
And to help us determine when a threat is a legitimate threat and when it's not.
Well,
I mean, we're always going to do an abundance of caution.
Can they take it a step further, maybe get into social media and other platforms?
And yeah, they can. And there's some things going on in the future. I won't get too far in depth, but we're researching right now some folks that can maybe even come in and help us with that, and using some tools from the intelligence community out there to connect the dots.
Yeah.
We've got tip platforms, and we've got social media. And what kids don't realize is when they put stuff out on social media, it's now in the public domain.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just you gotta develop the logarithms and utilize AI to capture all that stuff and call it all together and synthesize it so that if is this a kid just being a goofy middle schooler, or someone that's really got some issues. So we've got that. We've got phenomenal counselors and social workers. Social workers connect the dots between resources. Counselors catch it at the school level. Social workers are brought in when you've got families that are in need or resources in need. But then when you have those students that actually have talked about, or have indicated homicidal or suicidal ideation,
right,
we've got, which is really unique to our school system, we've got what's called student advocacy specialists. And no matter what grade this happens with a kid, and you'd be shocked, maybe you wouldn't be shocked, but even at elementary, you have some kids that have suicidal or homicidal ideation that is like legitimate.
Yeah.
And when that happens, they get an SAS, which is almost like having a mentor assigned to them and their family that will be with them their entire school career. So if it's in 5th grade, they're going to be with them all the way through high school. And we've got some that are still being worked with even beyond in college and in the workforce. And they're like mentors on steroids, basically.
Yeah.
And they don't answer to the principal. They don't answer to the counselor. They're on call 24/7. They come in. They fall under our safety and student support office. And it's like one of those, you don't know the terrorist threats that have been blocked by Homeland Security, but we know we're doing better than we used to.
Sure.
And I just, without it being hyperbole, like these folks, they have saved a lot of lives.
Sounds like
in our community.
Ben serves on the CASA board, and sounds like the CASA workers, very similar sort of role.
Yeah.
Kind of outside of the system, but there for the kid.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. Well, and what you see happen, when you look down at the Parkland shooting down in Florida, is you had a kid where there was multiple signs there, but as you went from one grade level to the next, and one school within the system to the next, that information slips through the cracks.
Sure.
Or if a counselor happens to change, or somebody, and this way, at least with kids that we've got internally, once they're on our radar, they're on our radar forever.
Mm-hmm.
And in a supportive way, not in a big brother,
sure.
but to be there. One of the challenges we've got is what happens, like with Barrow County, when someone moves from one system to another system. And I want to give our legislative delegation a lot of credit on this. After Barrow, we had some roundtable discussions about what would help us. And one of those had to do with the flow of information. So when you have a student in one school system, say in another part of the state, that has had some homicidal ideation or threats or been suspended or whatever, when they enroll in your school system, all that information has lagged. Now, the law, you say it has to be there within 10 days. Well, it didn't always happen.
Yeah.
So our legislators have beefed that up in this last session. that parents basically have to sign an affidavit that the kid has no discipline record when they come in, and they're held to the letter of the law on that with penalties if they've lied about that.
Right.
So that helps a little bit. School systems, there's pressure on them to pass that information along much faster, so that the child's new school system has that information right away. And at our end, we're saying, listen, if you come in until your discipline file comes in, you're going to learn online until we let you in a school building.
And what's the delay there? So in 2025, everything's electronic record-wise. I mean, so why does it take days for that to?
You would think it is. Living in Forsyth County, there's no doubt that it is. And in most systems at this point, there's some form of electronic system. But in the state of Georgia, every school system has its own, and nobody wants to give up their data information system, right? We believe in ours, and we've got all of our cybersecurity that we do.
Or you just don't want to change it. Nobody likes change.
Well, and there's that too. So every system sort of every school system married to their technology.
Yeah.
And the technology doesn't always talk to each other.
I didn't know they were independent systems. I figured the state just had a system.
No. And so that's another conversation that's out there about some of, sort of a central holding. The problem that potentially raises is it becomes a real target for, cyber hackers and that sort of thing. So, it's almost like the little boy at the dam, you plug this hole and another one pops out. We're always at war with that. Like we are totally at war with cyber, with cyber warriors out there.
Which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So drives me insane.
Oh, it's crazy.
So that's a pretty heavy topic but I got to go back. You said SRO, caught yourself, the acronyms. So I interned at the Board of Education when I was in college. And so it started then, and I just noticed that educators can have a conversation using just acronyms, and you don't have any clue what they're talking about. So if you had to list the number of acronyms, what would you say?
So Christopher, I asked actually at a recent district leadership meeting we had, I challenged each of our district leaders to go into their department and make a list of acronyms and what they mean. And so later this year, we're going to put that all together, and I guarantee you it'll be a thick listing. It's school resource officers, SROs, school advocacy specialists, SAS. And I think every world has its own lexicon. And you just but because people have kids in schools, John Q. Parent is interacting with the schools, and so they're exposed to that lexicon, and they're like,
What
in the world is that? You got a lexicon, but I don't spend a lot of time, in law offices. So, if I came in here once a month, like you might at an IEP meeting or something else, or kids discipline meeting or whatever. None of your kids have ever been in trouble.
What you just said, the IEP,
there you go.
My best friend's married to Megan Batts, who's the assistant principal at Cumming Elementary.
Yeah, phenomenal assistant principal, by the way. She's awesome.
I'll let her know. Hopefully she watches and sees that. But yeah, I mean, when she has a conversation, it's IEP this and TDY that and blah, and I'm like,
individualized education plan. Yes, IEP. That's for your special education students or special needs students. Yeah.
Yep.
Then there's 504 plans and EIPs and IEPs and. Yeah,
but I tried not to get tickled when you did, because you said share resource, and I was like, I knew he was trying not to use it.
I really tried not to today. Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, but one last thing I'll say on the safety topic.
Sure.
And again, I'll make mention of the legislature. We were on this path anyway, and then it sort of coincided, which was great because we sort of supported each other in this. But the screen time in the personal devices and the cell phones, we were a system that back in 2005 or 6 really became known for what we called the bring your own technology, BYOT.
Right.
See, I said it right that time. Bring your own technology. At that time, the technology everybody had were iPads and Kindles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those were great. You could load all your books on that, and they were backlit, and you could read. It would be just like reading a book. And a lot of kids at that time started having their own personal laptop. And so our system thought it would be great to get ahead of the game, and you could save a lot of money by having all your educational materials uploaded to these devices.
Sure.
Well, just as that's taken off, then you have the cell phone and the iPhone explosion.
Right.
And so we've got this BYOT on one hand. We're telling kids not to have their phones out, and they're saying, but this is where I've got all my... And so it really became kind of a cluster bomb. and we, we slogged it out, really for the last 10, 15 years with that. And so this year, and I give our middle school and elementary school principals a lot of props. A couple of years ago, with Jeff's permission and in my permission, they started putting their own school guidelines together that limited cell phone usage. And our middle school principals did a phenomenal job as they were doing that of educating the parents as to the why behind the what on that.
Yeah.
And then the legislature came in this year and actually banned, not banned, but they said no cell phones during class time from kindergarten through 8th grade. And we went ahead after meeting with multiple groups of high schoolers last year and parents and
met with students.
Members met with a lot of students on this and had a lot of good discussions.
What was their reaction?
We went ahead and went ahead and limited. I keep saying banned. It's really a limited them at the high school level as well. So our limitations go K-12. The high schoolers were what you would expect. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. When we would talk about and show them that we did a book study last year. Our Board of Ed and our district leadership did a book study on a book called the Anxious Generation, and had everybody watch the Social Network or the Social Dilemma on Netflix. The combination of those two things and the data that came out from that study or those studies that were highlighted in the Anxious Generation in 2012, the forward-facing phone. So the selfies kick off. In 2012, whatever the company was called, but Facebook or whatever, bought Instagram. That all of a sudden, all these things converged at the same time in about 2012. Well, if you look at a chart, particularly of girls, but of all teenagers in self-harm and homicidal ideation, all that, the chart parallels from 2012 till now on how many kids own cell phones and how the rate of self-harm and harm to others has gone up.
Yeah. If people haven't seen the Social Dilemma, they should go watch it. I mean, it terrifies you.
No, and that show demonstrates how they get you hooked. I mean, it was scientifically get you hooked with the dopamine, hits and all that.
Yeah,
so we did away with it. And the one compromise that I would give our students that really advocated credit on this, and the parents were there as well, is in high school, the only time they can pull their phone out when the school starts is during their lunch period.
Okay.
Just to check, because a lot of our kids work after school. They have ball games or practices that, the schedules get adjusted or whatever. So we allow that. But, we've got a phone in every classroom.
Yeah.
All right. So for safety issues, parents, they can call the school. There's phones in every classroom. From a safety standpoint, we're great there. If there was ever an event that happened, law enforcement doesn't want kids on their phone. They want them following the protocols. So we've talked long and hard with our community, and I got to tell you, our parents have been completely supportive of this. I mean, it has been really, really good.
I would hope so.
The real test we've said is we're in the testing zone now, because now when kids violate it for a second time in our schools, the phones are taken away and the parents have to pick them up. And I cannot believe the number of principals that are telling me that when they call the parents, say, hey, little Johnny had his phone out. This is number 2.
Right.
The parents are saying, you know what? Just keep it locked up for a while. I may come pick it up in a week or two.
I love that.
And but that's our Forsyth County community. That's what makes it so special.
Well, and I've heard too from high school teachers that when they go into the hallway now during changing classes or whatever, people are actually looking up and having eye contact and
conversation with each other.
You got kids at lunch playing Uno.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? You got kids talking to each other during class change. Our hallways have been silent the last few years.
Yeah.
Because it's all this. They're just walking around and, banging into each other. So it I know it's early.
Yeah.
But it's been a great start.
They're having a lot of problems having to take phones, and I always thought enforcement of that policy was difficult.
The first 3 weeks, you saw a lot of referrals being written.
Yeah.
Now that you're on the part where they're snatching up the phones, the referrals have gone significantly down. Now, we're only 5 weeks into the school year. So, and the Board of Ed was asking me the same question. So what we're going to do is run this all the way up to our fall break, which is really the end of the first quarter of school. Yep. And at that point, then we're going to start having some real data collection to see where the discipline is, where the counselor is. I met with a group of our high school counselors a week ago. We were all anticipating that with student anxiety not having their phones, that we'd see a spike in counselor visits. They said it's remarkable how well adjusted they are, because they're talking with people.
Right.
That's what
Go
a
figure.
couple of high school teachers I know have just told me of this social interactions they're having in their classrooms.
Yeah.
Not just in the
Yeah.
hallway. Like they're just
No
gone
doubt.
up and it's like teaching a whole different group.
Yeah.
Did
Yep.
any other counties take it K through 12?
So one of our neighboring counties actually kicked it very quietly, did this last year.
Okay.
Mary Elizabeth Davis, superintendent over in Cherokee County, they kicked this off last year. And that was great for us from the standpoint that I was able to pick her brain all throughout the year
You got a test
to
case.
say what has worked, what hasn't. She told us, the upfront communication and educating your public is number one. We've got Dr. Michelle Dugan, who's our communication director, did a masterful job. I mean, an unbelievable job of getting information into our principals' hands and out to our parents' hands and into teachers' hands. We've had a common message, which we're not always known for in Forsyth County because we give a lot of autonomy to our 43 schools.
You do. I was gonna say that.
This was one of those that needed to be, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And there was a team of folks that really drove this for us. So technology was Mike Evans, safety Todd Shirley. From the academic standpoint, was really the point person on a lot of this was Dr. Amy Bartlett. But all that goes away if you don't have great communications.
Yeah.
And Dukes went in there and put a communication plan together that
Well, I'm not surprised.
it really made it
I'm not
great.
surprised she did a great job. She's class of 2004, North Forsyth.
Well, there you go. She's a Raider, making Raider Nation proud, no doubt.
So I know you're a busy man. I don't want to keep you too long today, but I would like to know what are some challenges that Forsyth County has, and what can parents and people in the community do to help you?
Yeah, well, let me just say right up front that complacency message is one that as long as I'm in this role, that I'm going to keep banging that gong because I think we have a phenomenal community and school system. But I think if we ever get comfortable with our success and think we don't need to keep investing or keep striving, then that's the path that's going to lead us in the wrong direction. And so from the school system, we've got to continue to be innovative. That innovation comes from collaboration, and it comes from holding each other accountable, and the community holding us accountable. So there's that piece that I think we all have a part in. I think on the investment side, people love having their property values go up, but they don't ever want their taxes to go up. And those two things, I met with the Civitan group yesterday, and the ladies had great questions in there about why their property values or why their property taxes go up. And we had the conversation about it's basically, if you think of your home value as a pie and your property taxes are a slice of that pie, you want your pie to get bigger.
Right.
But as the pie gets bigger, that percentage-based slice gets a little bit bigger.
Sure.
That represents like the value of a mill, a millage,
Right.
a millage rate value. And so, but the reason that you can't just take and chop that pie up is while your home values go up, the same forces driving that are inflationary forces that are driving the cost of our electricity and our fuel and hiring and recruiting teachers. Did I say firing? Hiring
slip.
Hiring and recruiting teachers, and you got to stay competitive with salaries. So those same forces that are driving it up. Now, I'm really proud of our system. And this started, because when your mom was chair, and this board continued to carry that on. But, we self-imposed a cap. This was before the state legislature followed us and did the same thing.
Right.
But when we had that huge spike in reassessment values, after the pandemic, we came in and said, as good stewards, we don't ever want that to happen again. And our board didn't want it to happen again. We partnered with our legislature who got it passed. But we self-imposed a 4% cap on reassessed values. So if you're a homeowner, you get your homeowner exemption, there's a floating homestead exemption so that if your values are reassessed for 21%, we're only going to collect in the first 4. Now, the state came in and followed us, and with House Bill 581, did their own version of that, which tied it to the Consumer Price Index, CPI.
Yeah.
That is such a volatile, unpredictable, and manipulative number that we voted to opt out of that. We caught a lot of grief for it, but it's so volatile. You can't set your family budget. In this case, we can't set our school budget on a number that's yo-yoing. At 4%, we have a reasonable expectation of reaching or being at that each year. And if it goes over, we're going to stay within our means.
Yeah.
And this past year, the budget, we passed that $750 million budget with what we had control over locally of that budget. Some of that budget's controlled by the state.
Yeah.
They give you the money because you got to pay, teachers, a raise here or there. Or like this past year, they raised the amount that we have to pay towards health care and teacher retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some mandates, unfunded mandates that go in there. But the things that we can have control over, we only increased our budget this year by 1.5%. Which we're like really, really proud of.
Yeah.
Like that was now others would say, well, you should have cut it. Well, our number one job is safety.
Mm-hmm.
Our 1A is the learner experience. And our 1AA is, stewarding that money.
You have in a community like this, there's expectations.
High expectations.
That have to be met, right?
Absolutely.
So
I would rather get thrown under the bus and trampled and fired or whatever you want to call it, because we had to grow our budget by 1.5% or 2%, then get hammered because we didn't invest in our education,
right.
And our test scores fell behind,
Sure.
And our achievement fell behind, or the fact that we're the number one feeder for UGA fell behind. You got to pick when you're in public service, you got to pick what you're going to get chewed on.
Okay.
That's sort of how I look at it. So
is Forsyth the number one feeder for UGA?
I know you know what? I shouldn't go on the record and say that.
Okay.
I think we've got to be pretty close because I know we've got at least one school in our system. I won't name it, but at least one school, and I think 2 schools that are the top 2 feeder high schools for it.
Wow.
So deducing from that, I would argue that we're probably the number one feeder, but I won't go on the record and say that definitively because no matter what I could give you 99% accuracy today. Somebody's going to pick that 1% and hammer me.
100%
I was going to get you just to kind of brag about some of the things, but you've kind of sprinkled in a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Y'all been doing good lately. So.
Yeah.
No. Anything else we missed?
No, I mean, it's the people, man.
Yeah.
It is the people. And by the people, we have great people in our school system. Our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our custodians, our bus drivers, our cafeteria folks. When you talk about expectations, our community expects them to be the best.
Right.
Sure.
And so we work really hard to recruit and develop all those folks. We get Joey Perkle, who I mentioned earlier, has a program called the Class A Leadership Development. Well, when you hear leadership development in public schools, you think about developing APs, which are assistant principals,
right?
Assistant principals and principals. The Class A program takes all of what you would call your classified employees. These are the folks that are in your, in your trades within your school system, in your facilities,
right.
Transportation, cafeteria, that sort of thing. And he developed a program for leadership in those areas so that you have great cafeteria managers and great transportation supervisors and right on down the line. So developing leaders, is a huge investment because that's how you maximize, your effectiveness.
Well, the cafeteria group's effective because the food's a lot different now.
It sure
a little bit different.
Sure is. So no, I listen. I'm a cheerleader for Forsyth County Schools. I'm 19 years I've been here, and I have loved every year that I've been here. And it is the people, the community, the support. Doesn't mean like we're a big family, so it doesn't mean families don't fight from time to time.
Yeah.
We have those squabbles and everything. But at the end of the day, when people stay focused on our primary purpose, which is to have a great school system, you can't have a great school system without a supportive community. But I also argue that you can't have a great community without a great school system.
Yeah.
And that mutual recognition, I think, is what we've got here. And it's been awesome.
That's a good thought. Any new schools on the horizon?
So the other thing, and I'm glad you said that, and that wasn't even pre-planned, but that's the perfect thing to end up on. November 4th is Election Day. All right. And I just want to make sure that people understand the difference. Like when you hear SPLOST can mean different things to different parts of this county.
Sure.
All right. There's a SPLOST that our county commissioners take every 5 years to get elected on, that pay for our sheriff's office and parks and recreation. There's a T-SPLOST that our board of commissioners put out there, and that's for roads and bridges and so forth. Then there's an E-SPLOST.
Okay.
The E-SPLOST is the education SPLOST. Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax.
Mm-hmm.
Most commonly referred to as the penny sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
The eSPLOST is how we build new schools. It's how we put in, updated HVAC units. It's how we buy new buses. It's when you think of schools and you think of all things physical, the fact that we've had 6 SPLOST referendums passed is how we've been able to stay ahead of the game and why we have such little debt as a school system. We'll be debt-free by 2038.
Wow.
And when you think about the growth that we've had since 2000 until now and the number of schools we've had to build over this time, the fact that we could be debt-free by 2038 is remarkable. Well, what's helped that is that we've had a SPLOST all along the way. The last 2 or 3 schools that we built in school expansions, we paid cash for.
That's incredible.
And that comes not from the general fund or the property taxes. That comes from the eSPLOST.
Yeah.
So every 5 years you can put an eSPLOST in, and you got to put an exact amount that you're asking for in a list of projects.
Right.
At the end of SPLOST 6, we'll have completed all of our projects. All right. And the amount of money we asked for in SPLOST 6 was $300 million. Now,
Here it comes.
Here it comes. Yeah. If that $300 million is captured before the 5-year period comes to an end, you can't collect any more money. And we're projecting between 3 and 6 months, with 3 and 6 months left in SPLOST 6, we'll have maxed out our $300 million. So what we want to do, because I know this is a long way to get to your question, but we need a new elementary school in the northern part of our county, north central part of our county.
Okay.
To relieve Pools Mill, to relieve Matt Elementary, Coal Mountain.
That's my area.
That's
yeah.
yeah.
So we need some relief for those elementary schools that are getting filled up. We've got high schools that have portable classrooms stacking up, and some middle schools. What we've decided this time around is, rather than build a new high school or a new middle school, we're going to do some expansions.
Okay.
And let me just real quick, if we've got time to research that. You look at East Forsyth High School, and we paid approximately $95 million for East Forsyth High School. And that was completed, about 5 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Cherokee County is building a school that's only about 30,000 square feet more than that, which in a high school is not a ton of space, right?
Mm-hmm.
That one is just about completed, and it's over $200 million.
Good. All right.
Double in 5.
So we look at that, and so you take, we just opened the new Midway Elementary that cost about $35 million. It's the same exact model as, I believe, Pools Mill that opened up for $26 million. And that's only been a few years apart. Yeah. So we've looked at this long and hard, and while we absolutely need that new elementary school, we really are looking at the southern part of our county, some shrinkage in our populations. And so rather than go all the way with new high schools because we've got overcrowding in there, we're going to do some expansions, which you can do expansions on. I think we're looking at 3 of our high schools and 4 of our middle schools. And that's less than building a brand new high school.
Yeah.
So we think that's going to be a better steward. We're looking at turfing all of our baseball and softball fields. Okay. And that's not just now. Right now, a baseball and softball field are used for baseball and softball.
Right.
You can't put anybody else out there that destroys the grass, and now you're paying them. So by turfing those, you can now have PE classes out there. You can have band marching on them, and it's not going to make the baseball coach's head spin because you know how they take care of those fields. So playgrounds, thousands of little feet trampling down. We've got mud pits at a lot of our playgrounds now. So 12,000 feet of every playground is going to get turf.
Okay.
So that helps them. And those are kind of the fun projects. So all those are out. We've got a website devoted to explaining all that. But this November 4th, our eSPLOST 7 will be on the ballot. It's not in new tags. eSPLOST 6 will run out, so we're asking for an extension. Okay. So it's not a second penny. It's that same one penny. We're asking for another 5 years of that penny. And the reality is, if it doesn't pass, and I'm really, really hopeful and confident and faith in our community that it will pass. If it doesn't pass, we've got to look at these projects, and safety is a big one, transportation and all those expansions. Things will have to be cut, and the things that we have to do, we'll have to raise that money somehow. The only thing that leaves is property taxes.
Yeah.
And the beauty of a SPLOST is, when you look back at SPLOST 6, 40% of that SPLOST revenue came from people living outside of our county.
Right.
So they come in and spend money here. They come down to the city center, and out on the lake, and they're spent every dollar they spend, a penny of that goes to the school system, and they don't live here. I would much rather collect that from them
40%. That's a big number.
Than put more of a burden on our residents.
Yeah, very cool.
I love
Yep.
it. Well, should we move into the fun question?
Yeah, let's kick that.
All
And this is the part I'm most nervous about. Here we go.
We're just going to make you pick your favorite school out of the 43. Tell everybody. Lead us off, Spence.
All right. So I think we've established your favorite college team is Florida State.
Favorite college football team, Florida State. All
Okay.
All right.
All right. What's your projection for this year?
For Florida State?
Florida
Good.
State
Had a
and to
good
win the
start.
Natty.
Had a good start.
All right. So listen, I'm picking UGA to win the Natty.
Let's
right.
go.
I mean, I don't think there's any question about that.
You're invited back.
But I think, keeping my expectations reasonable. I was super excited and joy filled watching that win over Alabama last week. And yes, you're beating the name on the jersey, but that ain't no Alabama team.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wait. October 4th is a big day. My son gets married on October 4th.
Oh, congrats.
Not quite as big a deal, but important. Is Florida State. We play Miami that day.
No.
And I think that's where we're going to, because Miami looked really good.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to find out really quick if we're legit or not.
I'm going to suggest he has some TVs at that wedding.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There will be some streaming going on
All right,
along with the dancing.
So staying on the sports theme, so you did a lot of coaching college. Who's the best player you ever coached or played against, I guess?
The best player that I was ever involved in that we recruited and coached was a kid named Quentin Richardson.
Okay.
That was at DePaul University. He went on to have a really stellar NBA career. I think he finished up with the Knicks, but
I remember him with the Warriors.
But yeah, I mean, he bounced around a little bit. This was a kid, and I say that he was one of my favorites, so there's bias there. But he was a kid who was kind of chubby in middle school, and they said he'd never make the high school team. And then he led them to play for a state championship and sell the records.
Like
they said he wasn't big enough to be a forward, couldn't shoot it good enough to be a guard at major college, and they were saying that, yet we had to beat out Kansas and Kentucky to get him.
Right.
So somebody thought he was pretty good. And he came, and after 2 years of literally revitalizing the DePaul program, then went to the NBA, and they said he couldn't shoot enough to play there, and he had a 10-year career.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
Q's a special one.
That's neat. It's a good story.
Taking it back to education a little bit, if somebody wants to become an educator, give them sort of a elevator pitch on why to do that.
Well, here's what I would tell you. When the economy's down, people come out of the woodwork for the stability of education. And so that is the number one sign point. It is from a financial standpoint, it's really stable situation. I tell people that are considering teaching all the time, and Dave Ramsey did a study now that has proven me true.
Yeah.
When you look at the top careers that'll lead you to be a millionaire,
Yep.
being a teacher is in the top 5.
Well,
A doctor was not.
Doctor was not. Apparently doctors are not great at managing money. But teachers and engineers, and I think his study was people that are used to being process-oriented people. So anyway, one pitch to that is, now you'll become a millionaire, but it's a slow build. It's a 30-year commitment, right? And it's all tied into that retirement system, and then putting some extra money away in a 403B or a 457, that sort of thing. But really, when people come to me in a down economy, they're talking about jumping into teaching. They normally say, I loved history. I watch the History Channel all the time. I love that, or I love music, and I always let them go for a minute, and then I say, how do you feel about kids?
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And that usually, like, if you love kids, and it takes all kind, like we are blessed that we've got probably the best special education programs in the state of Georgia, if not the Southeast. I mean, we get people from around the country that move to our school system because of the reputation of our special education. So there are folks that have a heart for working with special needs students. Right. There are those who have a heart for working with middle schoolers. I was not one of those.
God bless those
I
people.
mean, holy cow. Elementary people are like, how do you deal with those big kids at high school? And vice versa. But if you love kids, then man, we need you in education.
I tell Megan all the time, I love my kids. There's a 0% chance I can teach other kids.
My dad taught middle school. He got burned.
You got to find your right love and not right. But if you love kids and you got a passion, you can marry up. What I always tell people is make that passion area your vehicle by which you reach kids.
Yeah.
If the vehicle becomes your focus, then don't come into education.
Yeah.
But if moving kids from point A to point B and helping them reach their dreams, then man, we need you. And you'll become a millionaire over 30 years.
You said something interesting earlier. You said that when people leave education, they don't ever blame the money. They always blame administration.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most admirable things about teachers is going into it, you're not going to become rich.
Yeah.
But you do it anyway.
Yeah.
And they deserve all the credit in the world for putting up what they put up with every day. And
no, they do.
Leading our kids along. So
they do. I love our teachers and I love our first responders. I think, that's what makes your communities go. If you've got a great set of, first responders, and I know Chief Head and his crew, I've talked about, our sheriff and our chief of police with coming. These guys are phenomenal, and the people they've recruited reflect them.
Yep.
And that's why this is a special place.
I'm glad you mentioned PJ. He gets mentioned somehow in every single podcast.
Well, you want to know why I mentioned PJ?
What's that?
One, he does a phenomenal job, but he's a Seminole.
He's a Florida State guy. He was in the
Florida
Fountain
State
last weekend.
So
yeah.
There's apparently there's a there's a roast coming up of Troy. And to raise some money for our community clinic at Cumming Elementary. So I'm going to get you guys information about that.
We already are.
And get you there. I also probably want to hit you guys up for some material on that. So
he's got a podcast. We did a podcast on Troy. So
he was one of the first.
You can look at that.
Yeah.
Couple more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take us on another one, Chris.
All right. Let's see. One of our favorite ones we like to ask is dinner with historical or any figure ever. Who would it be? And why?
Wow.
James Naismith.
I'd have to throw Jesus in there.
Yeah.
I think they,
I think to caveat that because
we'll talk about it, but we felt bad about caveat Jesus.
Yeah. You don't want to leave him out. Let's just say that would probably be a given.
Sure.
This is probably cliched to some level, but I'd love to sit and talk to Lincoln. How he held it all together personally, politically, the whole thing during during that time period, the Civil War. That would be one for sure I'd want to sit and talk with.
I don't think we've ever gotten Lincoln.
I think we got one.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that would.
I'd love to ask Harry Truman. What was going through his mind when he gave the order to, I think he's talked about it a lot. It was a tough call, but he looked at the bomb as just being a military tool that if he didn't use it, people rightfully so would say he cost American lives. But man, I'd love to. I'd love to talk to him about that. That had to be a hell of a decision.
Oh, I can't imagine. You a food guy?
Look at me, man. I love food.
All right. So the last meal you ever get to eat, what is it and where are you going to get it?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Casa Nueva.
Okay.
And Maria,
We've
guys
been
all know
talking about
Maria.
having them on the podcast.
Yeah, you got to get Maria on here, but I'm going there and I'm having her chicken parmesan instead of regular pasta. I'll have angel hair with it.
Okay.
When I saw that quote, I was like, he's going Philly cheesesteak from somewhere up there. Or something.
Well, I'd love a good Philly cheesesteak. I'm going to have one next Friday night. I'll be there for the Phillies Royals game.
No, nobody can.
And then the next how about this now though? This was my bucket list as a kid, and now at 52 I'm doing it. But I'm going to the Phillies game on Friday night, September 12th. Then I'm getting in the car and driving over and crashing in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where I used to go to college, seeing some pals there, and then going to the Penn State game on Saturday. They're at home. And then when that game's over, I'm trucking on over to Pittsburgh. Going to crash there. I think probably bump into the mayor because I think I heard that he's going to be there, and then I'm going to go to the Steelers home opener. So I've never done that. So I'm pretty stoked. Josh Lowe is my he's going to be my wingman driving me across Pennsylvania for that. So I'm pretty excited.
Stadium right there at the Rivers is.
I've never been to. So I've been to the Vet, Philadelphia's old stadium, and Three Rivers Stadium.
Yeah,
and they were both god awful, awful stadium. So I'm so excited to go to the new stadiums.
I think you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
Appreciate you.
Tell folks where they can follow along with the school system or find you or whatever they need to do. Websites, social media.
Yeah. www.forsyth.k12.com.
Okay.
That's right.
No, not right. Let me think about this again.
.us.
www.forsyth.k12.ga.us.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
All the
There we
splost information.
All the splost information, the e-splost information is up there.
Yep.
And actually everything you can find up there. And then that's got all of our emails and information. And reach out to us. We have a great board of education that are really accessible, by our community. Your superintendent, chief of staff, accessible. The point person really for all of us is Dr. Michelle Dugan. So any really good, tough questions you got, send to her and she'll know who to give them to.
All right. Thank you again for joining us. Keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. So we appreciate it.
We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
And as always, you can find us, BettisMusgrove.com, all your social media, anywhere you get your podcast, Bettis Musgrove. Hit us up. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.